everyone making the time and prioritizing this. We do have a number of items, including I anticipate some new business, so we'll just be mindful of managing our time throughout this discussion. Just some housekeeping, as is typical, we continue to adopt a hybrid meeting policy with members of the public and press invited to join remotely. Our policy states, consistent with New York State open meetings law, that full board members are expected to attend in person unless you have a disability and or an extraordinary circumstance as defined by New York State open meetings law. And guidance on this can be found on our website. Excused committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually, and board members, if you're joining via Zoom, we see Rodney and Rachel, we ask that you guys leave your cameras on. This meeting will be streamed live on our YouTube channel, and a transcript is being recorded. The meeting, as you all know, will continue to live there and be accessible to the public. As I just alluded to, we have 2 items on the agenda for a vote, but I do anticipate some new business and some discussion that I'll share during my chair report related to our most favorite topic, NYCHA, and I see Ken Jocker is here joining us. Ken, thank you for doing so. And I just also want to acknowledge Jesse. We are joined by Janine online, but Jesse is on vacation this week. So 1, let's let him have a restful vacation. But 2, it does, sometimes you don't know how much support you get from someone until they're not there. And it really feels weird not having him, in control and knowing that he'll be able to handle all things, not just tech, but obviously with new business or other discussions. Like, just ask everyone to be go easy on us as we, don't have our typical source of support in Jesse this week. So with that, we'll get right to business though. Josephine, we'll start with you. ACES has a letter regarding families and children at the road.
Right, so this letter is in regards to the expedited closure of the Row Hotel. The row was supposed to close in April, and now it is in closing at the end of this year. We've already written 2 letters in the past about the detrimental effects of 60-day evictions for children and their families. So what's different about this letter, well, first of all, let me say that at the row, there are about 1,500 students there, 89 who are at PS 51. So this is about a quarter of PS 51's entire school population. But what's really different about this letter that we're asking for is that we want DHS is offering spaces to, if families want to continue on in the system, actually asking them to transport these by vans because there's ice around the shelters to keep them safe and to make sure that they actually get a room and they go to the next. The other thing that we're asking for is that the agencies actually communicate with each other. So there are a lot of agencies that are involved in kids don't have a place to live, right? There's the DOE, there's DHS, there's OPT, which is the bus system, there's early childhood. And how can these agencies come together and actually create a plan to reduce chronic absenteeism? Because that's really the issue, what we're trying to solve. A child is 4 times more likely to be homeless as an adult if they do not have a high school diploma. So the fact that 1 in every 7 children now is either homeless or experiencing homeless in the city is a real problem for our future generation. And we're trying to tackle that. We may not be able to solve housing crisis right away, obviously we can't, but this is something that we can do, is get all the agencies in a room and figure out how we can come up with a system that we can all check in with each other to find out what's happening with these kids and how we can solve this. So the next step is really, we're going to be reaching out to these different agencies and see if they'll meet with us and try to come up with a solution. So does anyone have any questions? Yes.
So Josephine, do you have a sense of how, like, if they've known about this now for a little while, that the row was closing at the end of the year, right? Do you have a sense, like, has anybody heard where they are getting placed? So do we know, are most of the families getting placed in Manhattan? Are they getting placed in other boroughs? Because I just think that would be a challenge then about the busing if it's.
Right. So yeah, we've asked for that in letters, and we're asking for this as well, is that asking for our PS 51 families to remain in Manhattan. But priority is given to women who are pregnant or have some sort of disability or very small children. So they can be placed anywhere.
So nobody has heard yet where they're getting placed.
No, there's DHS staff in the building, and so they just kind of go on their computer and find placement wherever they spend. Right, and so we're also asking that they have a system that where the placement is regularly being checked on, so in case, you know, maybe they are sent to Staten Island, but then something comes available in the city, why not have them come back? And so they can resume at the same school. Yes.
Leslie,
Mine's not about the letter necessarily, but you might want to CC Gail Brewer on this, because you remember when she came to exec? Remember she came to exec and talked about this exact thing like a year ago about moving kids from schools up to the shelter moving, so she was on the warpath about it. So it might be a good ally to have to get the agencies together. I don't know, unless you might have done that just with a phone call, but.
So, did you mention the number of families and children earlier?
The number of students at the row is 1,500.
It might, I don't think it, and you correct me if my reading is incorrect, I don't see it anywhere in the letter, but it might be helpful to just add it.
Yeah.
To note, just
Sure.
like the volume. How many people?
Sometimes all this is in my head.
Yeah.
But it may not be. Yeah. I will add.
Happens all the time to all of us.
All right, thank you, Josephine. We do need to take a vote on it, so all in favor of the letter? Great, any opposed? Any present not eligible? Or abstaining? Okay, thank you, Josephine. The next item on our agenda is our new member toolkit. There is a copy in the Dropbox. We mentioned this at the last exec meeting that we were asking for everyone's additional feedback and comments. I think there have been some received, including the most recently from Jesse, so it may not be in the version that you all have in the Dropbox, but Rachel and Rodney are here. Heard from them numerous times about the work that they've been leading in this effort, and this is really an opportunity for you all to give any additional feedback, but ultimately for us to bring this to a vote as is sort of just good housekeeping and typical with what we do with materials of this sort that we circulate with others. And frankly, what I've heard at Borough Board, and I know when Leslie has, or Roberta have joined Borough Board in my place, this has been an ongoing conversation among other boards, the need to have more materials like this, the benefit of standardizing and sharing them across other boards would be very helpful. So Rachel and Ronnie, anything you want to add to that before we turn it over for any questions or comments on the material?
Certainly, just want to again introduce ourselves. Rodney Washington, Rachel Lee, co-chairs of the board engagement working group. Our other members were Wendy, Greg, Matt, Ella, Katie, and Maria. So we also would like to take this opportunity to thank them for their hard work over the last 10 months. This is the new member toolkit is a product of the work for the last 10 months. Using the survey, focus groups, more nuanced conversations, formal and informal conversations. So Rachel.
Thank you, Rodney, and thank you, Jessica, and thank you everyone for having us here today. So as Rodney said, this is a product of the extensive survey and the resounding voice from many of our members saying they would like the onboarding experience to be a bit more hand-holding than it currently is. Obviously, there are informal things that we already do that are really helpful, but this is to really put something in writing so that it stays with us for a long time and can help new members kind of find where to go for what information. Because one feedback that we got many times is that, you know, people are a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of information that they're given when they first start CB4. So this is supposed to be a friendly cheat sheet, if you may, to help people find what information, you know, where, and some unspoken rules. You might have seen in the document, you know, we interspersed it with some practical tips highlighted throughout. So those are really us kind of, you know, as existing members trying to provide some in-between knowledge to really help that experience be more seamless. And just to highlight, there are hyperlinks to existing resources wherever possible. And, generally you might have noticed that, we omit specific information like dates or names of people who are holding elected positions, for example. And those are all intentional because we would like for this document to withstand the trial of time, right? So that it doesn't have to be updated too frequently. At the same time, this is meant to be a living, breathing document. Obviously, your input today or, in the short run, very helpful for this iteration, this inaugural version. But the expectation is for future board members to also revisit this as necessary and be able to update it. I will also want to highlight, I appreciate Rodney for listing out the BUG members, but I also want to highlight in particular that Ella and Katie Stokes have helped with the initial outline, and other BUG members have reviewed and provided comments through the meetings that we had. And both Jessica and Jesse also kindly provided comments that we already incorporated in the initial runs. And also Jesse and Roberta sent some additional comments most recently that we will be incorporating that you are not seeing. And last but not least, I wanted to say that Alice Wong is not officially on the board engagement working group, but is truly the most generous and the most, magician-handed person there is. She is the one that made it as presentable. We call it the beautification of the report, and she helped us not only with this, but other similar projects. So I just wanted to officially give a shout out to Alice Wong and thank her for her hard work. Yeah, I understand the draft was shared with you already, and you will be voting on it today. So we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney, and thank you, Rachel. And you might not be able to hear it in the room, but there are murmurs and whispers of like, wow, this is so amazing. Wow, this is so comprehensive. So certainly open it up for any comments or feedback. The idea isn't, it's just that it is a living document. So, you can continue to send edits. Like we'll probably not want to constantly be revising and PDFing, but it will continue to live and grow with the board. But
yeah, that was my question. Is there a specific process you want to follow for updates to the document?
Thank you for asking. Obviously, inline edits would be most helpful. So not sure what you're seeing in the Dropbox, but you should have received two versions of it. One is a Word document, one is a PDF. PDF is just a sample viewing of what it might look like at the end. Comments to any of the design aspects of it are welcome, but to the extent that your comments are substantive in nature, if you can provide in-text track change edits to the Word version, that will be really helpful for us.
in terms of frequency, as we move on, I think we'll have to work with the board office to figure out, like, if the working group continues, then maybe they'll be generous enough to continue to make those updates, but obviously, fast forward 3, 5, 10 years, we'll have to figure out how that lives and breathes.
There should be a cadence on that.
Sure. Yeah.
That was the man I was gonna say, just establish the period that gets reviewed.
Yeah.
That's what we do in my office with these kind of documents that are broad, like every 3 months, every 6 months, whatever.
Great.
For review purposes, I mean, it is possible you want the committee to continue, but it might be a appropriate suggestion to add to the portfolio for the co-secretaries, thinking about just the content here and the way and that role and just the various responsibilities. It seems like it would fit well. Suggestion, it doesn't have to. Ideally in some place that says last updated, and it does say here like October 2025, which I think it works, but whatever final version should say when it is last updated. If you want to provide like a how to update, or this will be updated by somewhere here, that can help. And then finally, if you do have a Word document version, I like kind of copy and pasted a bunch of the PDF stuff just to see for like accessibility and reading reasons, like if it like pastes cleanly, and it may not paste as cleanly, so if you do want to provide a plain text version, like as an alternative for accessibility reasons, I don't think we've run into this specifically, that might be something you decide to do, but certainly by no means do you have to.
Thank
Those
you.
are all great comments. And on the accessibility piece, I was actually looking at it today, and some of the pages I noticed the texts are darker or against the blue background. So I was actually going to suggest, for accessibility reasons, that we use colors that are a little bit more visually friendly. So all friendly comments. Also really like the suggestion to put a little wording there, like if you have any comments or future updates, this is how you should be. So that's all great. Thank you, Roberta.
I just wanted to say, Rodney and Rachel were super generous about thanking committee members. But you two did the vast majority of the work, and seriously, you did an extraordinary job. And I think you should be triply applauded for the work that you did. So just wanted to give credit where credit was due.
Thank you.
I have one question. Guys, it says on the last page that it's copyrighted. I'm just curious. Was that like a funny little, because I'm sure a lot of other boards.
Probably not.
I'm sure a lot of other boards are really gonna like to see this for sure. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
I think that was a clever addition by Alice, but
That's cute.
yeah, another thing is, we were mindful of using certain images. So, like initially there were some images there that were like maybe CB buildings, like buildings in our district, but we wanted to make sure again that this withstands certain changes in the future, and that it's like timely, right? So yeah, I think that's just to give us credit that this is a CB4 project and we should be proud of it. Yeah, if anyone wants to strip it, then they gotta come ask and
And if we're allowed to actually say it's copyrighted as
I think
opposed
so.
to saying credit.
yeah. No,
Well,
but
fine.
honest, yeah, from a legal standpoint, totally fair comment. Thank you.
Well, I was just kidding, but sure, maybe.
Whatever. Okay, so with that, I guess we'll take it, there, again, you can send edits, there'll be a periodic review, but, with that, we'll take it for a vote, so all in favor? You? Any opposed? Any abstentions or present not vote? Okay, great, and you'll see this again at full board, because
Oh, okay.
following, best practice, we'll send it there as well.
Jessica,
Alright,
on
Rachel,
that point, could we please ask execo members, if you do send comments, could you please send it to us maybe by the end of this weekend so that we have time to incorporate it and share it with Jesse and the office as well? That'd be great.
Very useful. Thank you. All right, thank you guys. Thanks for joining us this evening. And
Thank you,
again, for
everyone.
all of your hard work on this. Okay, with that, we're just skating right along for the chair report this evening. Just a couple of updates, and then I'll talk about some things related to tonight's show, which, as I mentioned, I think will lead us to the new business discussion. But one is just typically we often exec in December falls close to the Christmas holiday, and many people are scheduled to be away on vacation. This year, I believe it's the 23rd, 22nd. I myself will be out of the country that week, so I will not be joining exec, which both means that this is my last exec as chair. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you all for your partnership and being around this table, and not just physically, but all the phone calls and times that we've spent working on so many issues. It's really been a real pleasure. For December though, it would be helpful to know if folks are planning to come. We can always send out a doodle, but if we do have business that we need to, that we need exec to approve, it would be helpful to know if we will have quorum for that date or not. So if you can just quickly, you can also let us know, but if you quickly look at your calendar and you're like, I know I will not be here that week, then it will be helpful to know that we do need to do a doodle to look for something the week before.
So you're asking for like a raise of hands if we know we are not available that
We're
week?
not gonna be here, it is,
If you're not gonna be here on Monday, the 22nd.
exactly.
Okay.
So if you are not gonna be here,
22nd. Monday, the 22nd is our standing executive.
Thank you.
Oh, so
So if you-
it's not 23rd.
sorry, 22nd, it is Monday, so if you know you will not be here, raise your. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I
Oh,
think
Jerry's hand just went up.
Oh, 3.
I looked at the wrong. Now I got the right.
So I'm just gonna make no call. Jill and myself. Okay, so I'll give this information to Jesse to determine if he wants to.
Wants to try for the earlier week or something.
Or we can still have quorum with people who are not here today, so in which case we would continue with that meeting date. It's possible that I could join remotely, but I would imagine that I'll turn to the first vice chair to chair that meeting, in my absence. Connected to that, I just wanted to make, you've heard this, but that elections will obviously be at the next board meeting that happen at the top of the meeting. Because we have, multiple people running for, positions, we're going to invite, we have already, Allison read this email folks, to invite everyone to stay a few minutes, regarding why they're interested in the role. That will all happen at the top of the meeting. And then we will vote and, results will be announced at the end of the meeting. This is the first time in my tenure that we've had multiple people running, and so I just wanted to both thank folks who have put their name in. I know it can be difficult and have people pull their names out saying, I don't want to run against other people. I think it's really brave and I respect people being passionate about serving, and I want to thank them. And we'll just ask everybody else to be a role model in the full board about that's difficult for people and to put themselves in this position and to be thoughtful and just considerate about the dynamics that we want to create, which is that having people seek leadership positions should be celebrated. And I hope that we can create that space and reflect that space at the full board meeting. So I'll ask everybody's help with that. Does anyone have any questions about elections? I don't know, I'm not sure that I'll be able to answer them, but if there are questions.
Where are we that thing?
That is a good, oh, we are at Mount Sinai.
People might ask this, to what extent are like the election ballots public?
That's my question.
We have actually received that question. The results are available in the board office, but they are not. Not when is the count typically disclosed. Now, they weren't, even when in uncontested elections, not
I think they have to
everybody,
be public.
not
No, the
everybody.
count was.
In the past, the count was not public, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think
But
that's.
because they're tested, it's possible that they will be
I-
handled differently. I'm just saying historically. The vote, I mean, and the reason I'm noting that is because. Even in an uncontested election, people did not get 100% of the vote. People vote against people.
Years when there was a contested
Or they
election.
forget, or they just,
People voted, I mean, I know that like in past elections. People vote against a candidate, even if there's not an alternative. That is a possible and has occurred outcome. And if we wanted to look in the board office at who voted against anybody who holds an office now or for, that is possible and. You know, is available. I don't, Jesse has not said that he. When he received the question, I can just share that when he received the question of. Are votes made public, he said the voting record is kept in the office. He didn't answer more specifically to say what the split would, that he would
you need a
announce.
foil,
the split.
you need a foil.
You need to,
Yeah.
Solve the mystery, don't
It-
We can obviously get clarity and I'm happy if people are asking the breakdown of how many for one person versus another person versus none of the candidates were voted for. If that's the request, I'm happy to consider, discuss it with Justin.
Just to follow up to that. Does that means that the votes, like, it is not easily accessible, but votes are not anonymous, is correct, yes. So, but it is not something that unless you request it from the board office and we are not never able to make it.
It doesn't get included in the minutes, it is searchable, it is available as a record. That I imagine can be shared if requested, but.
My understanding is this is consistent with how at least a couple of other boards do it, which is that you can access it, but we're not trying to advertise it for all sorts of purposes. So I think that makes sense. Thank you.
It's my memory that we had a contested election last. Those ballots were accessible because we're public officials, fund officials, we have to be able to put our name on it and anyone can look at them.
Yeah, and I'm saying that is true,
Just
yeah.
not. not in the way that our
Right.
minutes are.
It's not published, it's just in the.
No, it's not.
Go look at it.
Exactly.
You're gonna see it, you can go
But
see
there
it.
were people, I remember, at that election, like 10, 15 years ago, that actually went and checked the ballots kind of thing, so.
That's what she said.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Question, and this is just curious, really, like when we vote, do you have to be in the room to vote or?
You have to be in the room or have had an excused absence the way that you can vote on.
The normal
But if you
excused
are online, but ineligible to vote as you would be on a board, you know, at the end of the meeting, then it's when some people are saying like, I'm just watching, I'm away for a work trip, this doesn't count as an excused absence, they cannot vote for the election. They have to follow
It's
our.
like a normal excuse absence,
Exactly.
then you can vote this normal excuse.
If it's, you filled out the form that says why you are participating virtually.
I think Alice's email said the voting will happen at the top of
It
it,
will.
so people will submit their ballot in a separate sheet. And then,
Yeah, and then
After everybody speaks though.
Of course, yes, yes, people will speak, votes will be collected, and as I remember it from 2 years ago. Jesse then took those to another part of the room, he then held them, he held them, and then at the end of the meeting announced the votes, announced the results of the election, meaning who won. Again, he didn't say Jessica Chade is chair with 40 in favor and 10 against. He just said Jessica Chade is now the chair.
And Alice will be there, so I said I would support.
Yes, thank you. So Alice has chaired the nominating committee. She is accepting an award that evening, so there's a chance she'll be able, yeah, we congratulate her on that. And Greg has generously offered to step in to help MC that portion of the meeting.
I practiced my comment.
I was gonna say, I do know from other roads that I've been involved with in the past, that there are rules about like. You have to have multiple people be there for the count, that you have to then put them in a sealed envelope and sign across it, you know, so you just have to like follow those rules.
And
just so
Jesse,
if anybody.
I have every confidence that Jesse will manage that,
Knows all
and
that, yeah.
obviously if he needs.
Full faith and
Greg,
credit.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but yes.
Just want to double confirm the location because on the website, it says we're at the Hotel Trades or.
Holy cripes.
Okay.
That's,
Um,
as someone who's gone to Pier 57, when we've been hotel trades, trust me, I need to know it's good.
Some of the people who are running are going to hotel trades. Some of them are going to.
If you can hear me, can you check for us the location of the meeting on December 3rd? Because I have Mount Sinai in my calendar.
Okay, what Jesse sent out says hotel trades.
Yeah.
Oh, it does, okay, okay, I could,
I mean, I don't know that. I don't know what's correct, but that's what.
Good catch, good catch.
sorry, Janine, were you able to hear me?
Might have said it.
Okay, well, we will, of course, let you know. and
I have
for
Pier
those-
57 in mind.
Oh, boy, you're way off.
And the agenda.
Right, they're saying hotel trades.
No, it says Mount Sinai.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
okay. I haven't had that done afterwards, so I'm pretty sure.
Jessica, you will make sure this gets sent to everybody again.
Yes. Sure, and for those.
So we
who
all
are
have
joining us
one
online,
thing.
we'll make sure that the website is up to date and some notice accordingly. Okay, a few other things, I wanted to thank Maria for the coat drive, I understand that was a great success. Day and beforehand, I don't know if there's anything you want to share.
I sent out an email. Did everyone get it? Shout out to special people who showed up and
Yes,
volunteered.
that was nice.
So we distributed about 150 coats and the rest, some people asked, and because I don't usually share, I forget to, it's in my mind, but I forget to say it. Any coats, hats and gloves that we purchased, they stay there and Metro Baptist Church gives it out on their Monday. They have it's Monday clothing closet. And people come to get clothing, so they stay there for that.
And thank you for connecting with the principal. We actually had a high school principal at our last thesis meeting who said that students were in need of coats, so it just worked out perfectly and connected them with the church.
Yeah. Yeah, so very good, very good. Thank you to whoever supported, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great.
The website does say, that our location is at Hotel Trades.
We'll just get clarity.
Yeah, okay.
So the
These are all
agenda
these, they were sent out at some point, got
Okay.
couldn't be challenges, you know.
Okay, I wanted to also, acknowledge, I think some of you in the meeting and or are aware that JD, has stepped down from chair as Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use together with Paul. Paul, I want to thank you. You were not stepping down.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for the service that you've done together with JD. We'll have hopefully a full board of time to appropriately celebrate JD's service and accomplishments. He's not leaving the board, so we will continue to have his expertise. And I'm not yet prepared to announce who is replacing JD, but I do hope by full board to be able to do that. And obviously, if you have any concerns or questions or comments that you want to discuss, feel free to reach out in the meantime. And again, thank you for your service there.
Carrie Baldwin was my shop, so.
Right. The last two things, or one thing before we get to NYCHA is just, I don't know if, and Leslie, we didn't discuss this ahead of time, but if there's anything, there's been a lot of discussion about, the Manhattan Cruise Terminal of late, and it's been we'll expect to hear more of it, but is there anything that you would like folks to be aware of?
Really, the only thing is that, so they came out with their master plan publicly, the full master plan, all like 85 plus pages or whatever pages it was. A week and a half ago, about a week and a half ago. It's public, but they are going to be at the next WPE meeting to present it to us. And they're also gonna couple that with their public session, like they are going to advertise it, so we won't be here. Jesse is trying to
That'll be a
find,
big group.
yeah, Jesse's trying to find a bigger room that can hold the virtual audio visual as well. So our next WPE meeting will serve a dual purpose. It'll be the regular WPE meeting and it will be the public session for EDCs, or the first public session for and comment for EDC's master plan for the Manhattan Cruise Ship Terminal. We probably, Marty, I'd like to hear this. We probably will not have another item on the agenda. It'll probably be just that.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So, yeah, so anyway.
And this is a big, if you aren't already familiar with it, this is a very big
Yeah.
proposal. I would almost say like.
It's like Port
let's
Authority.
say, exactly.
It's-
This
I mean,
is
it-
very
Anything that
big.
involves the Army Corps of Engineers is a big.
It's really big,
Yeah.
and so obviously all of us should attend, but I think one thing, and Leslie and I both liaise with Hudson River Park Advisory, but like the groups that will be affected by this, whether it's parks or schools or.
Yeah.
Transit groups, like people need to be paying attention to this because it is a really big deal and it's not clear that everyone yet has been as tuned in as it should be. The timeline, I think, is still very unknown.
Yes.
But I just don't think people would wanna miss the opportunity to share directionally their
Yeah.
concerns or thoughts about. this project.
EDC shared it with us in a private meeting. Jesse was there, Christine was there for transportation, because that's a big chunk of it at the, at the top of it, obviously, the west side, east side, excuse me. But you have heard of,
Highway.
I'm sorry, of the project.
Right.
So you have heard, I was talking about shore power. This is like 10 times that. This is really what they're thinking is a mini, or not even a mini, airport terminal like structure, but for cruise ships. So it's significant. It's beyond significant.
And what is the date of that?
The date of what? I'm sorry.
Summer.
The meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
The 11th.
Thank you. Yeah,
So I just looked at the website, so I can put it.
yeah,
What's it gonna be?
Yeah.
yeah.
Biggest venue to be determined.
To be determined venue, but yeah, it is significant, and it's, like Jessica said, it's definitely like a Port Authority, type. Possible working group, that whole thing.
And again, groups, if you know people who are concerned about water or air or transportation.
Public.
They need to be
Yeah.
participating in these things.
Yeah.
because
And just so you know, and we said this before, but just so the EDC, in January of this year, February, March, they did have 3 very big public engagement meetings on what the community and all those groups would like to see in a plan. And they incorporate, and we did a big letter on it on what CB4 would like to see. And they incorporate a lot of that into the master plan. So this is now seeing it actually, you know, seeing the sketching of it and stuff and where we go from there and tweaking and all that stuff. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the last topic I wanted to touch on, which is really to give some update and then lead into some discussion about NYCHA. Yes, Paul.
Before we go to that, can I just ask a question? Just updates on meetings that we've had. We had a meeting with the 404 West 50th Street. Yes. Anti-demolition letter that we sent, and the Department of Buildings has said they put a stop to that application.
Great.
So just wanted to share that with everybody. We actually are going to receive a letter from them saying, we did what you asked. It was a shocking meeting. It's like, and furthermore, Paul and I pushed heavily on the tag on the website to say demolition restricted. And they actually, the group we met with agreed. They first did the harassment, they were like, well, it can be harassment, but not demolition restricted it too. That they said, our attorney said we could not do it, but we really want to bring that back and have it discussed again. It's like. But we went into the meeting thinking there was gonna be some pushback on the letter, and they right at the outset said, we agreed and the application has been pushed out, and we're like, oh, the opposite. It's like, so accomplishment from the committee and the letter, so I just wanted to share some, but it.
Good job.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so at the last meeting, I mentioned that we have, since we wrote our letter back in, I think it was September, outlining the criteria that we would want to see in the NYCHA project going forward, several of us, Greg, Joe, Maria, Josephine, and myself when we met last, we had one meeting. We've since had a second meeting with our elected officials, the tenant leaders, tenant association leaders present, and Lucy Newman from Legal Aid to walk through our letter. Say, like, we want to make sure you understand what's in here and that we can discuss openly what is available for really, like, what next steps are really possible to advance on. Ken also is there, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Ken, sorry.
Ken needs to be.
Ken, please.
Hi, I'm Ken Jockers, I'm the executive director at Hudson Fields. Good to be here as well.
We had a second meeting, just last week, and instead of focusing, it sort of happened very organically, that instead of focusing on the letter, which we still needed to finish, going through, we found ourselves talking about some of the issues that were discussed at the Housing, Health and Human Services meeting, most recently, which related to a tenant who, was in the middle of a move when she decided she no longer was prepared to go forward. And I'm sure some of you have maybe heard about this situation. It was very upsetting on lots of fronts, including that the tenant didn't feel capable of expressing their desires, called in tenant advocates from the community, friends, people that she knows.
Neighbors.
The police were also called. It escalated very quickly, and it laid bare just how challenging what we kind of knew would maybe eventually happen, but it was a living example right in front of all of us of what can happen and how quickly these situations can escalate. So in our last meeting, we found ourselves really starting with this individual. I want to remind everyone that what's happening right now is related to what they call phase 0, which is moving people out of buildings into new, recently renovated buildings within FEC largely. There are a few who requested transfers.
They're not renovated.
Some of them are.
The units, we got the direct reports, they are not being moved to renovate units. That was one of the problems.
Okay, I think some of them are renovated and some people have been moved, but maybe not everybody is being moved. There is a matching process. People see their apartment ahead of time, they can accept it or not, and there's a process that follows that. I'm distinguishing that between phase 1, which is another piece of work that's unexpectedly, I would say, happening at the same time. We expect it to happen in a year from now, and that timeline was advanced, which is converting people's leases. They are not moving them. but there are like two distinct actions happening at the same time. We were raising concerns about phase zero. And that there are people who are now facing legal action in New York Supreme Court without legal representation, because there's no right to counsel at New York State Supreme Court. And that even for those who who are not facing legal action and who have not yet accepted an apartment, there still remains confusion, uncertainty, feeling just simply overwhelmed in what we can also recognize as like the holiday season, right? Like people are looking to celebrate Thanksgiving, and we heard from somebody saying like, somebody asked if they just want to spend one more Christmas in their home, they know they have to move, but like, can there be some leniency? And so it really laid bare just like, issues around just like humanity and having decency around this process. And that doesn't mean not doing the process, but it means being thoughtful about and really having individualized plans for each household and knowing what I guess leniency there is in that. We spent a lot of time talking about this with the elected officials, and then we also talked about phase one, which is NYCHA has decided to close on these buildings related to phase one, which is 500 units by the end of this calendar year, so December 31st. So trying to re-sign over 500 units onto new leases. Again, the holiday season, schedules, lack of information. This was something that was like shared in August, but not clearly to a very limited group. And just feels very frankly distinct from how any other PAC conversion is handled. Where if typically we've been told anywhere from 6 to 12 months of like deep work, presentations, meetings, individual case by case support provided to really understand what's being asked of a tenant and what the consequences.
Right. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, I'll back and forth.
So, well, I just wanna say that the meeting, was good in that we heard from the electeds that they shared a concern around timing. And so from that meeting, they said obviously they talk and think and whatever, work together. But they did send the two letters that are in the Dropbox. One is what's called the pause letter. And one is a letter to DSS requesting that a right to counsel be provided to those who are in New York Supreme Court. There are a lot more details that I'm sure we can share and can be discussed. I do want to just highlight two other things from that meeting, and then Katie can take your question. One is for phase zero tenants, we had heard that the intercom system was no longer working and you could no longer find a tenant's information, and they also couldn't connect. Reminder that these are all seniors, maybe getting delivery or packages and not know who's buzzing at their door. And that mail had been
It was no longer being delivered to the building.
rerouted to the post office, and they had to go to the post office. Again, these are seniors. So there was similarly an understanding that this was unacceptable in this meeting, and that those two things and things like that need to be, right, not just, I mean, these two things need to be rectified, but that there needs to be an expectation and a level of accountability by NYCHA, by related essence, that things need to look and work differently going forward. We also discussed at our next meeting having HOU present to give an update as to what their activities are, because there's some comments of harassment. There are some comments that we hear, we don't always, that activities have happened, but we don't know if they have happened. We don't know if they were in multiple languages. It's just not been a lot of direct communication with HOU, who handles the moves. This is primarily like for phase zero. And they have agreed, since our call earlier today, that they have agreed to come to the next meeting to provide that update. Okay, there is more to say, but that was the meeting and I wanted folks to know that that happened. We have updates, but if anybody has questions about the meeting or if folks who are in the room want to add anything about that, including Ken, you're welcome to share, please do.
Sure.
Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I have three questions. One is on this phase 0. We had heard a lot that the state attorney general's office legal team was providing a lot of support and paying attention and wanting to make sure that people felt represented. So I guess I'm just surprised and wondering sort of where the break was for then all of a sudden these people not to have legal support when it had been promised, I thought, for a while.
Well, there is convergent law, the AG's office is not providing legal support to tenants. That's not what they do. They're providing legal oversight to this process.
But I thought that
Tenants have access to convergent law, which people have feelings about, being a New Jersey-based
So
legal team,
five
very
person-
small operation.
5%.
But tenants are encouraged to reach out, and in many cases they have. In many cases, some tenants have secured their own counsel. So but specifically, there's a concern that some tenants may be facing, their case may go before the state and that they have not been fully counseled because they haven't opted in or they haven't, they don't trust who's there to provide for their legal counsel because convergent works for NYCHA, and if there's already a lot of distrust, a tenant may not feel comfortable accessing convergent law.
Okay, so it's not that there aren't people offering.
No, yeah, no, it
It's
is.
not that there isn't a process.
No, I couldn't think. So this piece, so this we get lost in the details sometimes, right?
I love a good detail.
I know you do. That's why I'm trying to put it out there. So normally there's an internal process at NYCHA when they are terminating a lease and pushing someone to do something. You were informed that would happen. And then they were also considering going to state Supreme Court to actually, and then the Supreme Court actually, you don't face penalties and jail time. We thought it was going to be sequential, this internal process in NYCHA, and then if that failed, you go to the state Supreme Court. Legally, state Supreme Court, there is no right to counsel.
I understand that, but
Right, so there is no, and convergent law has nothing to do with representing tenants in state Supreme Court whatsoever. So it's not like the tenants have access. Legal aid,
I was gonna say legal aid, yeah,
they were very upset
yeah,
because they normally do this kind of representation.
Yeah.
However, they are not funded to do these actions in the state Supreme Court. They've been very clear about it up front. And the issue here is, why would you go to that immediately? We asked legal aid, how many times do you see this kind of actions? They said extremely rare, maybe in a development of like 1,000 apartments, something like 3 or 4. On our meeting, our HHS meeting was the 6th. On the 10th, 16 people were served Supreme Court actions and these are all the seniors, including the woman who we heard from. So that was one of these moments where we as a board are trying to do catch up because we believed we're trying to get a letter out saying, no, it might be D, whatever. Now there's 16 Supreme Court actions. So everyone was caught off guard here.
Right, but it
Okay.
usually goes through housing court, right?
Yeah.
Not the Supreme Court. That's what made the big difference, and that's what I think really got the AGs and all the elected officials at the table to say this is just wrong. Like, why isn't this more?
And why is there the rush? I couldn't understand what is this rush. So then it was all about closing by the end of the year. That was the big issue, right?
no, I thought we're,
Well, you had a second and third question?
yeah, hold on, but that was phase 0,
They're on phase 0.
but phase 0 isn't about closing at the end of the year.
Yes,
They're both about closing.
Oh, they're both about
But
closing.
phase 0 was always scheduled to close in their estimation by the end of the year. It's phase 1 that is more aggressive. I
But-
just also want to know that the reasons that there are 20 households that have not accepted their new apartment or to move at Chelsea Addition. And there are 76 total households at Chelsea Edition and 20 are refusing to move. Joe mentioned 16 of which are now facing the Supreme Court action. And then at Fulton, there are 2 people who have not accepted a move
And we need to know,
out of 35.
and we need to know that every single person on the Supreme Court docket, 65 or majority in their 80s and 90s. And that's the part that we really stress with the electeds, the timing of this. And then we got a specific report with pictures and everything of the process servers coming to their doors with sheaves of paper, knocking at 7:30 in the morning or at night. And that's the moment that's like, no matter what we care about or think this project should be, we can't move ahead like this. And I think Brad or Jonah jumped in from, the point is that this is not the way to build trust for phase 1, let alone
Yeah,
phase
Yeah.
0.
Yeah.
If this is the way it's being approached, so what can we do to?
yeah.
Can I just have a quick question about the people?
Well,
who-
Oh, yeah. Still in.
Yeah, just one quick question.
All right, so I guess phase 1 you said was by the end of the year and they're not being asked to move or anything. They're being asked to sign. Are they also being taken to court? Or being threatened with being
No, they
taken
have
to court?
different consequences.
Okay, just I was trying to understand sort of
But
the,
Lucy
But-
Newman said she would get us the bullets, that should be coming
Right.
soon.
It-
There's a whole bunch of consequences of
That
not
you're
signing
being
a lease. And one is, if you don't sign, you could pay the full rent,
Market rent.
the market rent, the section 8 market rent, which we knew this to a degree, but she explained in other developments, that might be 1,500 for a 2-bedroom. In this case, it's 8,000
Right.
for a 2-bedroom.
Which is obviously very, very.
That's, we're talking about, this is not.
Yeah, keep going.
so I was trying to understand, are they, the phase 1 people, are they getting any legal support right now?
They have through conversion, they can come in. I also heard. They have trailers related, Essems now has trailers because they couldn't use space in the buildings. And they are reaching out, doing one-on-one appointments. Where people can come in and ask questions. They're not in a position to provide legal guidance, but people are availing themselves of one-on-one appointments to understand what's being asked.
If they trust the process though, and they may not. Okay.
So, and then we had a totally weird item that I had to intervene directly, just because we were all trying to figure this out. The woman who came to our committee lost her key, went to get a key, and she was told by NYCHA, she would not get a key, replacement key, if she signed a section 8 lease.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
you could imagine,
Yeah.
and this got brought right up to Carl Wilson, called NYCHA, like, and there's a whole back and forth.
Yeah.
3 times she was told she could not get a key. She was locked out of the building.
Yeah.
So this is not helping the,
Yeah.
Roberta, it's like, not helping the trust factor here at all.
And so I guess then my third question is simply that, so what are the next steps? Like, I know we're being apprised of this, but like, how are,
I'll share next steps, but before we get there.
Well, this might not, and I'm not talking about, what's going on with them. I'm just curious though, has anyone, these 16, these families, right, or these households, thank you. And do we know the reason why they're not, and the reason why I'm asking that, is it is it gonna be long, do they wanna draw it out themselves because it's philosophical, do they just don't understand the process, is there a language barrier, and I think that's important. Because I'm not saying this should happen, combos of all,
Yeah, I can share what we do know,
okay,
which is that 18 have move refusal. 11 are against the project.
that's, okay, that's a different.
2 apartments, they refer to as potentially abandoned. Meaning they seem to be unable to contact the household. And then 5 are written as NYCHA transfer requests, so desire to transfer to other NYCHA campuses outside of FEC.
That doesn't answer your translation question, but.
No, I mean, but that actually answers it very well, because I think
That's
that,
part of it.
yeah, I mean, the 11, that's the philosophical ones are the ones that are gonna really, are gonna stay. For a reason, it's not because.
Some people like moves completed for just focusing on Chelsea Edition for the moment is 43, but there are 8 moves pending and. Like, they could change their mind, they could be the woman who was, so I wouldn't, and then 2 are pending decision.
Also, I
whatever
don't
notice.
think the word philosophical is accurate. There are people who said, I want to move from a house. That's not a philosophy against the project. It's a couple who were 93 and 94 who said, we don't want to leave our apartment. That is not about, I hate this project. It's just that
Right,
security.
but there are some people who are saying, I hate this project.
No, and there are, but I will tell you,
Yeah.
like, it's a mix.
Yeah, right.
It's not
But
majority.
I think the solutions for each are gonna be a different.
Exactly, each and every
You
one.
have to troubleshoot what that is.
And you know, Leslie said, solutions are different to each every person, right? That's the truth. And that's what normally happens in the 6 or 8 months or 12 months of a
Well, I'm gonna
active
ask a
version.
stupid question, because I think I know the answer. Does NYCHA related Essence have a troubleshooter person that's kind of like being like, okay, you're afraid that. Like,
I mean,
just like we were
Gabby-
dealing with PS33, there was no one to talk
It's
to.
HOU, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why.
They would be the one.
And Gabby from Essence, I think, is trying to provide some additional capacity to do that. I would say,
Is that accurate for you?
I know that she is talking to tenants. I don't know that she is problem solving. I think she is fielding questions.
And we also heard that a urban planner from NYCHA was sent into Chelsea Edition to knock on doors early in the morning to late in the evening to convince people. Urban planners that work for me are not people who send to work with tenants who have multiple languages to convince or work something. I mean, it's just not it just doesn't seem to be anything to do with the standard. NYCHA has done this work in like 10,000 apartments so far. This is the exception. And by the way, it's been done very successfully. I mean, there's been major, like you have to move temporarily, come back, do this, whatever. This is an ongoing process. This is happening in a very roughshod and very poorly managed way. And we try to reach our electeds, right? To say, it doesn't matter what you want to do in the end. It's just not the right way to approach people to get through this. And in fact, it's doubly the wrong way. So our consequence was they wrote a letter saying, take a pause and please fund and whatever, but then Jessica does an update.
so they wrote the letter. I wanna like acknowledge and thank them because I know that was
Absolutely.
not easy to do and it is on record and it was signed by all of our elected officials. There was then a meeting on Friday, where NYCHA acknowledged receipt and Essence Related was on the call, acknowledged receipt of the letter. And, did not, in fact. Sorry, let me say this, they indicated that they were not gonna be heeding the elected's request for the pause.
Wow.
And
How's that?
and that they would be planning to move forward. And going back to your observation, the AG's office was very aggressive and saying, I don't understand why you wouldn't generate a pause. It just doesn't make sense.
For Fulton, he did not really Chelsea, right?
They were what?
They
Oh,
were not, there was not a commitment that they were, they barely acknowledged the letter. And so there was a consideration maybe for phase 1.
oh, I had understood from my intel that it was full steam ahead on Chelsea, Fulton, not only
There
Chelsea.
was an acknowledgement that the campuses may be able to be treated differently as the project progresses, but I did not walk away with a clear understanding of a commitment to pause or delay on either phase 0 or phase 1 for either campus.
Okay.
I shared with Joe earlier, there was barely Brad, Whalen Siegel said, I expect a written response to our letter. And that seemed like a surprise to the NYCHA representatives on the call. They confirmed that they would provide a written response following his verbal request. But it is clear that NYCHA is just got blinders on and really is moving dramatically and drastically towards this date. The AG's office again said, I don't understand why December 31st. And they said they literally were like, well, there's financing concerns, and Brent, who is our contact at the AG's office, who's devoted to this project, said, and I still don't understand what the financing concerns are, like, you need to explain them.
It's still not settled.
And it's still not set, they didn't provide them. I requested, following up on his request, a meeting. I said it in the meeting that we needed to have a meeting, and then I sent a follow-up email, which has also gone unresponded to. And it is obviously very deeply concerning and upsetting.
Can you just clarify who was at that meeting and?
Sure, so it is to be,
Yeah.
it is a meeting of that electeds were having monthly with NYCHA and the applicant to discuss the project. We were not ever invited to that meeting. We had told our electeds that we should be in the meeting, and as should other community stakeholders be in that meeting to hear what's going on and to hear the updates. And again, credit to Brad's office, they fought to get a representative in the meeting. Our invite came with, you may have one person participate in
How's that
this
for
meeting.
public transparency?
To which Jesse had a few thoughts on that. But we agreed to take the opportunity to be at the table rather than not. And so that is, so last Friday was my representing the board in that discussion. I want to hear from Ken.
I have one more tidbit to add.
I do want to just say that I think and this goes to the new business discussion, like, I think I'm open to ideas about, I mean, sure, we can send a letter. But do we need to request a meeting with our elected officials? Brad and the AG's office were very vocal on this call, others were not. I want to acknowledge Carl from Eric's office did a lot to get this letter done. But like, I don't know, is it all bark with no bite if it's a letter that you don't follow up on? I'm increasingly concerned, that there's lip service happening here with not a real commitment to seeing these issues through.
Lip service from whom? Nice related or from the electeds? What's your
Well,
lip service? What's
I mean, I'm referring to.
Okay,
in that
thanks.
case. I mean, I'm very disappointed, I'm shocked that NYCHA can operate this way, but that's like a whole other issue. They've been very, they have not, they have acted the same way. Probably as well. I mean, that's why we're in this situation to begin with, a disregard for the tenants and the living conditions that people are experiencing. I think they're continuing to act that way.
Tidbit on that side, and then what's the?
Yeah, so the tidbit is I received information about a subsequent meeting with Fulton tenants and HUD. HUD representative came out to speak to the Fulton tenants and then did a follow-up, and they said, can they have more people in this room? So I said, sure. NYCHA represented in that meeting that the financing is not approved nor settled. That the rents are not settled or negotiated, and I learned for the first time that people are signing Section 8 leases without the market rent in the lease. I had never seen this before, ever. So therefore, they're signing a lease not knowing what they could be liable for if there's a problem.
Which I will say, Tony Yadira at Tony's office did raise that specific thing.
Right.
Both from a like. People might not be signing leases right now because they don't actually know what they'll be on the hook for. And this is a very, like, just for transparency's sake, again, regardless of what you think about the project, like, this is an important piece of information that should be shared with them.
And then the kicker is, Representative from NYCHA said, and it was ready for getting notices, you have to move, you have to this. You shouldn't get any notices, because the project is not yet approved by HUD. And of course, we're not sending any notices. It's as if the rep from NYCHA in a meeting with HUD did not speak to the rest of NYCHA, who's actually doing this. So
Sending a notice.
sending notice, I was like,
Who are the NYCHA representatives in the meetings? Or within?
Jonathan Devaya, who's
I was
real
gonna say,
estate,
now he's
President of real estate.
Heather,
Is there someone who's like is there one point person who's in charge of this? project?
Heather, I don't actually know her last name, and to her credit, like, she seems quite capable. I just think she's getting that
Doesn't really care about.
direction. No, I think she's getting like, her goal is,
What was the project?
it feels like her boss is related,
Yeah,
and it feels like the elected boss is related. And that's
Is it-
how
I'm thinking if-
Wow.
it seems like there's a.
it's my last meeting, so.
Write it all in, Jess. Write it all in.
Right about the new.
From you.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense, it's your last meeting, that's why you're saying it that way.
I will say, I felt it in this meeting last week in a way that I had never felt it before. I
To
genuinely,
get a letter like this where it takes negotiation among these parties and they signed it, you know, we learned at our prior meeting, the AG doesn't like signing letters. She rather prefers phone calls. When I saw this, the fact that she put it in writing and then they ignored it, it's like,
So
Just crazy, man.
one thing we could do is.
We're in the chair report and we have the district, can we just put like this tiny pin in this discussion, do the district manager report, and then, because there are also people from the public who
Yeah.
wanna speak.
Oh,
So
No, no.
is that like,
Sorry.
I don't even think there's, Janine, are there any comments from the district manager's report that you have to offer?
As far as I know, no, Jesse did not leave me any notes.
Okay, I think it's primarily check the meeting dates, obviously we have to confirm the location. But please, you know, make sure that for any scheduled meetings for the month of December, you would know where you're going.
Jessica, I
Um,
wanted to point out that there were 3 hands in the public.
Yes, we saw them, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now we can go back, we're gonna shift to new business, and so happy to hear from you.
Sure, well, glad to be talking to you all about this, and I think that the set of conversations that have come out of that group and the letter that has been meeting over the last month or so, it's met twice, but has some other meetings scheduled, from my vantage point is produced probably the most concrete responses and sort of action that I have seen, read on the sort of, the official business line, right? People sort of pushing the conversation on different levels is playing out, I think importantly, but on the official business line of it, this feels like this has been the most concrete steps that I have seen, including that letter, right? Which is a big deal. A couple of just context things, right? So we run the NORC, the Naturally Occurring Retirement Community in the LA Chelsea houses. Our NORC staff started with a group of what they have called couch conversations, meeting with tenants, and are now doing sort of much more intensive one-on-one outreach with folks. It's difficult because people are afraid, even with, long-term relationships. I think it's fair to say, right, just for balance, that there was an initial set of people who moved very willingly and have reported back quite positively. I mean, and I think that it has to be acknowledged. And the set of folks who are now struggling, I think, are afraid and are somewhere between afraid and angry or, confused, right? All the sort of the driving emotions. So what the two things that from our perspective seem to be kind of important. So I was told also that NYCHA is going to respond to the letter, and we'll see what comes out of that. Can't be sort of can't be taken to the bank, but I have been told anecdotally, look, nobody's gonna be moved before Christmas who does not want to move. No, right, that's right, I mean, it's not, I'm not, you can't take that to the bank, but that is what I have heard. I think, from my perspective, it seems that following up on this letter and using the electeds who do seem to have the most amount of leverage in this conversation is super important, and I think that that's, that was demonstrated, because that's who is being listened to, on some level, right, or at least getting in the conversation, so that's one thing. I also think that it's super important to get to some understanding of what the quote unquote rules of engagement are, what the rules are around what can be done, what can't be done, and to get some level in having a dignified and respectful process. Again, whatever you think of the process or whether this should happen or not, as it affects individual human beings treating people with dignity and respect, what are the acceptable rules? And the reason I think that it's important to get to some baseline, and I would ideally like a written baseline, is that if you don't, it leaves a lot of room for dismissing what the other side is saying, because, right, you can't prove it, right? So for every time that somebody gets their door knocked on at 7 AM, there was also a response that says, nobody's door's getting knocked on at 7 AM, right? I've been told that. Not one person is getting their door knocked on at 7 AM. So how do you get to something that's actually actionable and concrete that allows you to say, these are the rules, and if it is 7 AM, the rules are being broken? Or, you know, if there is, right, or if the statement is, look, the buildings have been sold and you gotta move, right, well, that's not, you know, that's not an okay statement, right? You can't say that. And so for me, the most productive thing will be or would be to come up with what the acceptable rules of engagement are to move through this in a way that respects the individuals who are most directly affected. And I think, I mean, for, you know, I think that Hudson Guild can play a role in that. And it's a role that's different than we have had so far. Like it or not, we're not a construction agency and we haven't had a position on demolition versus renovation, and we're not going to, because that's not our role. But the treatment of tenants and neighbors is, and that is something that we could appropriately get involved in.
Thank you. Is there anything you want to say about what's happening on the ground? And you just referenced, you were having couch conversations or your North folks.
Yeah.
That triggered some folks to move, maybe there's been some positive response, there's been some fear you pointed out. Is there anything else, just as the entity that's on the ground in support of individuals, is there anything you want to share about how that is for you, your team, tenants, the residents, et cetera?
I mean, I don't know that there's more to it than that. There is, you know, no surprise to anybody here. The reactions are all over the map. Full spectrum, right, and so, right, and that's terrible in the way that it is playing out between neighbors and how people are being treated in the conversations, you know, and what it means to sort of walk around the neighborhood and get yelled at for your perspective in one way or the other. So it is an incredibly sort of intense set of feelings. And that I think is hard for a lot of people. I believe, the only thing I would add to it is clearly this is gonna get more intense over the next 3 months. You know, right? This is when, right, the people who wanted in on this, they've had their experience, right? They've moved, and now it's the people who are afraid, don't fully have all the information, or don't want this to happen, and that's gonna get.
Or can't
way
be
more
English
intense.
or.
Sorry, you
Have
don't
to
know all the
be, have to
information.
be handheld through a process as opposed to pushed on.
Right.
And that's the part that I said, so objection on the whole thing.
And if I could just add one thing, I'm gonna make the assumption that it is, let's not undersell, I think. While you are in service to the community, there is a significant burden on you and your team right now to try to navigate some of this complexity as well. I just don't wanna undersell the idea that you are the primary historic supportive services provider in the neighborhood. And that this has added a layer of complexity to your work. Sure. Which is gotta be challenging, A, and B, you're the ones who are trusted, and it's not necessarily an outside entity that comes in and tells people what to do or what not to do. I just wanna make sure that's on the public.
And I think, I wanna bring this conversation always back to the broader context. This is not a new process to do the RAD Pack conversions and NIGO. And there's teams of private sector and not-for-profits working in groups of, in like teams that do this, and it's done successfully over and over. And this particular team and this decision is getting supported. That they don't have to play by those rules of engagement.
No, but you know,
That
what,
exists
just to
all over the place.
oversimplify it, you would think that there would be like intermediate, like if they were smart, we're gonna have a few intermediaries to hold the hands of these people and to explain to just the extra mile. So.
But that's what they do.
They think they're doing that.
Yeah.
Yes,
you're
They
describing,
think
they
that
think it's
HOU
being
is doing
Yeah.
that, and the challenge is that for people who see HOU as doing the work of related, of NYCHA who they don't trust, that's not an acceptable, Intermediate. so there's not trust, and they're,
Yeah.
again, among NYCHA, related's effectively NYCHA to them. There's a lot happening in the buildings on the street that is creating, is exacerbating the tensions that already
No,
exist.
there's trailers get brought up, no one talks about it, everyone freaks out, the PS 33 school committee goes crazy, why are these trailers here? And also, Leslie, people are being told, if they don't sign we've heard this now by multiple sources.
Yes.
If you don't sign a lease, you're not gonna get an apartment. That's simply not true in the Red Pact conversion until the
Right.
very end of going through a whole bunch of legal process. It's not true, but that's how they're starting. And I
This is
think-
why having a plan is so important, because we talked about this, legal aid was saying that at these other conversions, they actually have workshops.
Right.
That residents attend.
Months and
the whole
months.
Process is explained to them very clearly, and that's not happening here. They're trying to do something in 60 days that should happen over 6 to 9 months.
And
Yeah,
I
I think
think
it seems to be like it is communication, which has either not been there or has not been good, and understanding of a person's legal rights, responsibilities, what you have to do, what you can do.
Exactly.
What are the parameters here? And then also the very serious emotional impact of that and how you process through that, even if the outcome is the one that you don't want, because that's a real possibility here. So how does a person process through that without harming themselves by, doing something that jeopardizes their ability to have an apartment, but also more importantly, helps a person navigate through the very rough emotions of what it means to move out of your
Have
home.
there been law enforcement? I've heard different stories. Is there law enforcement going on these campuses or no?
Yes.
There
There
was an incident, which is what brought it to.
This precipitated this whole thing.
One thing.
Yeah.
Law enforcement call.
Alright.
I do want to just acknowledge also, like, I have been invited to Holton tenant meetings. I go almost every month. I did not go this past week. I had a conflict. And there are presentations. I would not describe them as, Ken, you were just like the individual support that needs to happen
They're
to.
just,
They're not
services.
They're like.
They're very high level and they're good, they're important, they're a piece of that whole puzzle, but they are not sufficient. Nor are they, even when they are well attended, they are not attended by every person who
Sure.
lives in Fulton. And so just the need for this really intense outreach work to happen. And if HOU is not being well received, then figuring out and thinking, who are trusted partners? Is that Hudson Guild? Are there others? How do you build that trust and bring that in so that you really do ultimately get to everyone? And that just is not the kind of considered approach that we've seen.
Clinton Housing works with Hudson Guild on supportive services and support housing buildings. We're doing a renovation of one building. And as part of that, we have to temporarily relocate some people around, elevators then come out. We sat and did an assessment of every single tenant to understand who's gonna be cooperative, who understands, who doesn't. We did this whole thing first to map out and then thought about, okay, now what's the plan for each person? And how do you do with it? And that's on a small building of 68 apartments, not this scale. And that took like a long period of time and months, because you have to do that because it's a bunch of human beings involved in this thing.
Right.
And that's being skipped over.
So we do have people from the public and, well, it sounds like, I just want to float out some ideas, which is one, the electeds wrote this letter. I think we could send our own letter to second that request. I think we could, we need to continue follow up with the electeds to encourage them to be, very vigilant on this issue and they have been. I'm hopeful that the discussion around what are the rules of engagement could be addressed in our working group meeting. I recognize that that's not necessarily an action that I'm proposing be taken here, but I think Ken, we could work with you to figure out how do we facilitate that discussion. We come with a draft, especially if HOU has agreed to come to those meetings. What would that, how can we use that time most productively, seeing it as it has been a productive place? We have a meeting on the 1st and then again on the 16th, so that is possible. So those are my initial thoughts. I mean, we should hear from the public, but any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, okay, I'll doubt that a lot of the conversation we're having is topics that were raised in our original letter, right? Let's have third-party mediation come in and assist with this. Let's have regular open communication meetings set up on a regular basis on each of the campuses. Let's have language compatibility.
Months and months ago.
We had raised this months ago, so if we are going to do a letter, I mean, I think that the tone of it has to be, we have been requesting a lot of these things that are not being done, and now we're seeing the ramifications of it because we have tenants who are being, the language incompatibility, so they're not understanding what's happening to them. We don't have regular open communication on each campus on a regular basis. These are things we have asked for.
We had the
So
foresight,
it extends to
we had
that.
the foresight of.
Like,
So the one thing, and I know there are other people who wanna talk, and I really do apologize that I thought this was ending at 8 and I have to leave in a couple minutes, I'm sorry. But the one thing I would say about that, the prior letter, which raised a bunch of important things, I think it's gotta be honed down to the smaller number of critical elements. And that means figuring out what they are. I just think it's a more narrow, whatever it is,
things on my list,
yeah.
probably. Yeah, I agree with that kind.
This does not discourage anything, but if the elected's letter was not particularly received with any meaningful acknowledgement, or is an additional letter shouting into the void, maybe?
If I could just say, I think, yes, and.
I mean, I'm not saying
Yeah,
not do
no,
it,
I just wanna let know, yes, and.
Yeah.
That doesn't,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the kind of thing that dissuades us from leaning.
Not at all.
But
How is that
yes,
different?
Not-
yes.
You know, to the extent people look at our letters, which I don't know who does, but
Yeah.
they don't know
They
if
do.
the elected sent this letter. I mean, it's in our Dropbox, but it's not in our file. And so I do think a letter, I think for that reason, so we are clear on the record, is valuable. But I also, we should not expect that that letter is gonna do the work that their own letter did not.
And can I ask, before we go to public commentary, if we are going to do a letter, would it come from Zach, would it come from the working group, would it come from Chelsea Land Use, where do we exactly, where do we think we follow this?
Zach, yeah, I think it would come from exact, I mean, I don't think it's a land, we're actually, it's more of a housing issue than anything, but I think it is reflective of
Yeah.
these conversations. And typically with a working group, it would have come to exec
Anyway,
anyway, so I would be proposing a letter from.
and these things would be so fast, it's hard to figure out. who did
That
it
is, I
from.
mean,
That's something we require.
They're gonna continue to move fast in ways that are not exactly linear or direct, I mean, it could be that today we heard that. We could leave here and hear that there's a pause that we didn't know about, like, and that speaks to the communication issues and. Not being, buttoned up, but that is also just the I mean, I don't have a solution for that yet, but it does feel very
Just guess me, Jay,
unevenly.
like, what
moving.
should we do? I have never seen this before. To get this kind of letter requires such an amount of negotiation.
Well,
in these
let's,
letters.
why don't we,
Okay,
You know?
we're gonna keep the comments limited, but I wanna start with Renee,
Sure.
I can do this. I'll
I'll bring them over.
Okay, yeah, you can bring all the hands over, but Renee, we'll start with you as a tenant leader.
She's on mute.
Hi,
Okay,
Renee.
hello. So, the likelihood that trust can be restored is highly unlikely. Last week, there was a pizza party from Related Affordable Management. Spoke to Jeff Brodsky, spoke to Benjamin Hitchcock, who's a community planner, from NYCHA, who's been going around knocking on doors, telling people, they have boxes for them, asking them to call him. So we've discussed with him, who's the one who was doing it, that he needs to stop, that this is, if this was your grandparents, would you like us to treat this in this manner? He really couldn't answer that question. We spoke with Jeff Brodsky, related affordable management. What he has to say is NYCHA has asked us to do this. So no one anywhere takes accountability of anything that's done. So that's something that needs to be said. Convergent is not there to represent the tenants. They're merely there to inform on the PAC process. You will see that in small lettering. They do not represent anyone. They cannot give you legal advice. That will not happen. In the case of the Hudson Guild, last week, I had phone calls. Even them are being viewed with suspicion, especially when they ask people, are they for or are they against demolition? So we were on a phone call when that happened, and the nurse was trying, I don't know what the nurse was trying to do. But when you don't call people prior to walking over there, you get very skittish and very nervous tenants. So we have problems everywhere with everyone at this point, with people constantly being called. Some of the things we've dealt with, we have people by related affordable management who are being told that there's no more Section 9. Therefore, they signed an agreement. An agreement, project-based Section 8, that frankly does not, now nobody signs a lease that haven't seen an apartment. But we're being asked to do something that doesn't usually get done. And as you said before, there's not a, you don't see what the fair market rent is. Translation services are also not available. I get a call from someone who has already signed the lease, now wants to get a copy of the lease, but is very scared and tells me they were told they would have to pay fair market rent. At this point, this is a mess. Translation services are not available. So there's very many things that are going on during this process, from the phase 0 tenants who are still not getting their mail. I called and spoke to a supervisor today. They returned my call. What they said is someone was gone for a few days, and so I can go there and bundle the mail together. I'm not going to be able to get the mail because I don't have an ID that says 436 West 27th Street. What we need your help with is getting the mail started. There's no reason they cannot deliver the mail. That's the help that we need at this point. Nobody wants to get that done. When the mail not delivered, that means, but somehow they can print out a rent invoice, but nobody can deliver the mail. The portal has been open so people who pay that way can do it. But we need mail delivered. We need people getting their insurance. We need people getting prescriptions. We need people doing all that, because if they miss target dates, that means they no longer get the services. That's where we need your help the most. If you think it is highly likely that there will be trust, I assure you, highly unlikely. Too many lies that are told. Such lack of accountability is astounding. When people are looking me straight in the face and going, NYCHA told us to come here. NYCHA told us to do it. NYCHA told us this. A $70 billion company is being told what to do. Related companies is being told by NYCHA what to do. Nobody believes it. Nobody trusts. This is where we need your help. We need to get the mail started. And I understand that maybe the underlying thing is to get people to leave because they don't have their mail. That's my suspicion at this point. Because we need the mail started. There's no reason that the post office cannot deliver the mail. That's where we need your help. We need the lies to stop. We need someone to take accountability of what is going on here. That's what we need.
Thank you, Renee. I think we've expressed our concern about the mail, and
The
we'll
intercom.
continue, and the intercom, and we will continue to press on that, and I appreciate you elevating the things you'd like to see us focusing on.
I apologize, but I'm, you know,
Thank you.
prepared for us to stay in the
Thank
conversation.
you, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kim.
Layla, I don't see it, but I know we brought you over. Did you want to speak?
Yes, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Sure. A couple of things. The first one, wanted to clarify the situation for the tenants who have been summoned to court in state Supreme Court. So because they are taken to state Supreme Court, there is no right to counsel available to them. The Chelsea Public Housing Defense Fund, which is a coalition of groups and neighbors, have organized, and we're raising funds to actually provide legal services and legal representation for those tenants. I think it is really, really important to understand that if it were not for the solidarity of the entire Chelsea community, these tenants would not have legal representation, which, you know, puts an incredible stress on them. Pivoting on a meeting that I had this afternoon with a representative from HUD in Washington, D.C., wanted to give you an update. This is what was conveyed. The first thing is that there's actually no conversion date that has been set. So, you know, HUD will sign off on the project eventually, but as of now, they have not set a date as to when that is going to happen. We understand that they are reviewing the financial package. And although they indicated that they don't see anything that would rise to the level of a problem, at the same time, they are still reviewing it, and they are not close to saying when the decision will be made. The representative from NYCHA, who was in attendance of this meeting, did indicate that no tenant should receive any notice telling them that there is a deadline to sign any lease, which was interesting because in all practicality, this is exactly what is happening. And then finally, HUD did confirm that NYCHA is in negotiation with HUD to actually negotiate a rent exemption, meaning that the contract rent, the rent that Related would receive, is actually still under negotiation. It appears that Related is actually asking for an exemption over the exemption that is already sort of like automatically granted to areas that are, wealthy areas such as Chelsea. And so as Joe had mentioned, that means that tenants who are currently signing Section 8 leases are doing entirely blindfolded because they do not know what they will be on the hook for. If I can make a recommendation to this board, I appreciate all the work that you have done. I would really urge you to get in contact with HUD and to convey to HUD directly, to the Office of Recapitalization, what is happening, the harassment instances, and documenting these instances. You may want to share with them the public meeting that NYCHA had last week, where tenants testified in a heart-wrenching way, so that this gets documented and that HUD is in receipt of all this information. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Great, thank you. Salinas, will go to you, and then Janine, if you can bring over the remaining, and we will have to ask anything that you can offer, ask the director comments to concrete suggestions, so that we can make sure this is the most productive use of our time. Salinas?
Hi, so in terms of convergence, I wanted to highlight what Renee said. The tenants, they don't have any legal representation. Convergence, they've been hired by Related company, and the goal is to have the tenants sign the lease. All Convergence does, they answer questions and concerns. Once again, the goal is to have the tenants sign the lease. They work for Related. Tenants are not the clients, not the priority. So you can't blame the tenants if they don't trust the process when every single body involved have been contracted by Related, even NYCHA, even NYCHA. So if tenants want representation, they have to get their own lawyers, and that's expensive. So we're pretty much on our own. With that said, most tenants, most of the tenants, they don't know that convergence have been contracted by Related. Many think it's a fair process. That convergence is neutral, and they feel safe and comfortable having their concerns and questions answered by them. Once again, those are the intentions. And I'm not surprised that NYCHA didn't put a pause to the process. This whole process have been cruel and humane. They don't really give a hoot about any of us. And just so you know, people who are signing the lease, they're doing it under duress. Many have not read the lease. And as you already know, this is not a resident-led process. The tenants are signing the lease only because they think it's a requirement. So this conversion is not consensual. At least the majority. Anyway,
you.
I think I said what I
Thank
needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Antonio.
Hi, I had a few questions about the entire process here. So, like, when it comes to the newest court case that was happened, I think that happened most recently, where they were starting to rule things being illegal in terms of, relocating seniors. What does that have as like an overall effect on this whole thing that we're kind of, um, like all the seniors are kind of going through. So like what's the implications of that?
We actually don't fully know. We know that the two, there were, for those who don't know, there were two cases, and the judge ruled that they could not be immediately moved. But that judge is now seeing the other 16 cases, that were referred to earlier. And we're expecting to get more clarity, on after December 4th.
Another judge saw those two, but the judge, they're consolidating the cases
Excuse me.
to a second judge.
Right,
Not
to
the
the
same.
second judge.
Right.
Yes,
right.
he's taking those two cases and they're doing all of those together, and that hearing is December 4th, and we expect to get more clarity at that time, but at a minimum, my understanding is that for those two residents, that proceedings to move them have not, have been held until at least December 4th, when this new judge sees those cases, Judge Cohen, I believe.
Can I just suggest that if this, if there's public testimony, if someone wants to share their thoughts, questions, or otherwise, that maybe we just gather what they want to share with us before we respond.
Yeah, Antonio, do you
Save
have,
time.
do you have any suggestions or comments that you want to be sure submitted on the record?
Yeah, I just wanted to know also that like as for the relocation and people who are not being able to see their contracts, I know specifically of a few, good friends who live in the building that they have not been able to see their contracts. And again, it feels as if they are kind of being misguided on their conversion. So going to see our contracts at the NYCHA office, is that something that's feasible right now? Can we
Yes, and they
ask
should
and
reach
request it?
out. Yeah, they should, I mean, that is what, if they are if they are in phase 1, and I apologize, I don't know those building numbers, but if they're talking about lease conversion. Recognizing what was just shared about a lack of trust and all of that, I recognize that. But there are representatives from Related Affordable Housing. They are located in trailers on the property, and they should be able to make an appointment or walk in to discuss what is their specific lease conversion entailing.
But if they say you can't have a copy, you need to get the information who you spoke to. And please send that to the community board, because this is what we're trying to get and understand. Different people are being told different things, and we really want to get this, as Ken noted, some rules here as opposed to a free-for-all, which it feels like.
Which
right now.
should allow people to take a copy, review it with their household, their lawyer, whoever they feel they want to reach out to for advice and guidance.
Got you. And then the last thing, it's super short, is overall, like when it comes to I would say the entire harassment thing, has there been like video proof of this happening? Has there been videos sent? Like, is there, because I personally have not seen it, but I've heard it from everyone that I'm friends with in the building. So is that like something that is going to be brought up in further meetings where it's like, these are clear violations and harassments of the tenants, or?
We would invite people to share that information with the board or their elected officials, and would be happy to receive that information if it exists. And
Okay.
when it exists.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. All right, we do need to keep moving here, so because don't even have a motion yet, and we do have to end by 8:30, so Lydia, I'll turn it to you, and then.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I think it's really important that you send a letter. You're right, not everybody is in receipt of that letter, and it's important for the community to know that the board is hearing what the tenants are saying and responding to their concerns. Secondly, I want to say that I can't overemphasize enough that harassment is taking place. It's really untenable and unacceptable and unconscionable. And even if NYCHA is refusing to slow things down, I don't think anybody in this group should accept the fact that tenants need to be harassed for this process to happen. Why aren't they getting their mail? Why is the directory erased? Why does HOU tell people things that aren't untrue or that aren't true about whether they can get their keys or not? Who is taking responsibility for that, and how is that getting cleaned up? The answer is no one, and that's not right. The other thing I want to mention is that we know from Lucy Newman that the Section 8 leases that are part of the automatic RAD conversion are missing certain protections. Is the community board looking into that and figuring out what needs to be done so that what we were told at the beginning about what kinds of protections tenants would have is really going to be true? And I also want to remind you all that the Chelsea Public Housing Coalition is providing lawyers for the tenants who have been called into state Supreme Court. NYCHA intentionally filed in state Supreme Court to make sure they did not have the right to counsel, which they do not have, and specifically to fine them in contempt so they could be harassed with fines and threatened with jail. How is that okay with everybody? Because it's not okay with me, okay? They are not getting legal representation. The truth is the administrative procedure hasn't kicked in for most of them yet. Their right to counsel is a very slow process, and NYCHA intentionally did it this way as a form of harassment and to terrorize the tenants, and they are doing an excellent job of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia, and I just want to remind folks.
Please stop talking when anyone else is talking specifically.
Sorry, I was.
Thank you.
I didn't understand something. I want clarification.
I want to just acknowledge there's a letter in the Dropbox that's accessible to the public requesting DSS provide legal support. I recognize that we still have more we can do. I just want to make sure that because somebody had said that not everyone is aware of all the letters, I want to make sure that that is acknowledged. Marnie? You're on mute, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everybody. Just like when I listen to you guys, it's just like so painful. I think that it seems like the majority of the board is very interested in whether this is a dignified process. And the reality of what happens is that when they sign those Section 8 leases, yes, they may pay the 30% of their income, but they're also going to pay utilities. And also the rent is going to be tied to the fair market value of the apartment, so the rents can increase. And so actually, when a lot of the tenants, we went to to speak in front of the NYCHA board, I mean, you would see like a lot of the disabled seniors, Teresa comes to mind. I mean, so many in the senior building, they really cannot, they have to have a Section 9 lease. They cannot sign over to Section 8 because if they do, they'll basically die. So I feel like whether this is a dignified process is not the priority or not what you guys should focus on. It's this conversion from Section 9, which is deeply affordable with many tenant protections, over to Section 8, where it's a very, very harmful lease. And also the thing is to also remember is that the subsidy for the building, let's say they get into the building, that subsidy, the developer has total control on how long that subsidy can last. I mean, they can change it. They can say, oh, it's going to last for 5 years. Oh, 10 years. And then where are people going to go? So I think that's very important is to really pay close attention to the reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnie. Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that the board has taken a position on this, exactly what Marnie is raising as part of the original working group, and that this is consistent with other PAC conversions. Obviously, we can evolve in our thinking on that, but I just want everyone to know that this has been considered.
And it's worth saying as well, I think the conversation tonight has been about individual dignity. We have talked about process, but when the word dignity has come up, it's been about individuals. I think there's been nothing in this room except a focus on wanting to ensure that individuals have dignity.
Irrespective of the whole.
Alexa, we'll go to you, and then we're gonna go back to the board for a vote. Or a motion, and a vote, hopefully. Alexa?
Hi, I just want to say that I got 2 or 3 recertification for the year, and I signed in on section 9, NYCHA, and I'm still waiting for my lease that for 2026, and I haven't received it yet. And also I want to say about Lucy Newman, that she said in the meeting that there was a on the contract, paragraph 9 of NYCHA, that there was a mandatory thing that if they were gonna demolish the building, that we are obligated to to convert into Rat Pat. You know, I want you to find out what is legal, what is illegal, you know, for me, because I don't want to move. I mean, I don't want to convert, but I would gladly move out of the area with section 9.
Thank you, Alexa. We can follow up specifically on any individual issues that you're raising. Thank you all to everyone coming out this evening to speak on this. I think the thing I want to also just remind the board, the executive committee now, not all of the issues that are raised here need to be unpacked and worked through. I want to remind us, like, we can take action. Many of these things we have taken action on, and as was noted, we've included in other letters. We will, and I hope the next chair will continue the work of this working group that we refer to. And I think a lot can be accomplished through that. And so I don't know that we're I think right now this issue of the pause of the things that are being defined as harassment, keys, mail, intercom, 7 a.m. door knocking, etc., as well as the rules of engagement. Sorry, was that the first thing I said? And the rules of engagement are things that are very time sensitive and things that I would like to suggest we take up now as exec, recognizing that all of these things, including the leases, detail, you know, the protections for residents going forward, everything that was frankly outlined in our September letter, will continue to still abide and need to be tackled one by one.
So in the spirit of what Ken had said about trying to keep our letter a little bit more focused, maybe I'd recommend that we have a letter with 3 parts. First, starting with the support of the letters from the elected officials to call for a pause on the project and insisting on legal representation at the Spray report. Second is having established some sort of rules of engagement that would be followed, that people would know this is the procedure, this is not the procedure, so the tenants are aware of what's going on. And then third thing is to repeat our top 4 priorities from our previous letter. First being that we maintain ongoing residential services and maintenance, like the whole bridge plan, you know, make sure that the buildings are being maintained, and that includes mail and intercoms. The second is that we utilize regularly scheduled communication meetings on both campuses, so people are there. And the third, that there is full translation services available for all residents. And the final thing I would add is that we have all interactions done with the accompaniment of tenant advocates or legal aid, and that they could be video recorded. So we've always talked about third parties being involved in this, and I think we just need to pull that up a little bit.
And sorry, where on that last piece, like
Anytime there's interaction with tenants, like going around and knocking on doors, that the tenant should be allowed the opportunity to have a tenant aid or legal aid, tenant advocacy,
to
or
request
legal aid,
that a tenant advocate and.
or legal aid present in the interactions with the people that are saying, this is the lease you have to sign, this is the timetable, this is the language piece. So we have third party accompaniment with the people doing the outreach.
I'll make a motion.
All right, let's.
Wait,
I-
she can do it, sure.
I was gonna say that I think. I like your suggestion, but I do think that some of what you mentioned, like the language services, that has been mentioned previously in letters, and to Roberta's point and what Greg said. Like, we've written so many letters, the electeds wrote a letter, but I do agree that yes, and yes, we need to do this. What I would urge is that in the letter, that we are adding new people to the letter. For example, someone suggested that we send it to HUD. I would also say the AG's office. And I think it needs to be an extremely strong letter. We have written several. And as someone who lived there, right, besides Mike Noble and Hector Vasquez, who currently live there, I'm someone who lived there. My grandmother raised her children there. I feel so invested. What I didn't share is that I've done door knocking at Chelsea Addition and Fulton, both buildings. So I got to speak to some of the tenants and see how many were occupied, and some had already signed leases. And they were moving like the following day or with not having a lot of clarity, a lot of information. One person even said, I have a recording of someone from HOU who's saying, you know, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you more time. I'll work on it. I'll give you till December 1st to sign. Mind you, there's an upcoming court date on December 4th, right, about what's happening. We know that they're trying to close by the 31st, and I'm extremely frustrated that I think we're being so generous here at this table. Oh, there's a lack of trust now. Since the very beginning, there has been time after time after time after time an issue with the lack of transparency and the lack of accountability from our elected. And when do we say enough is enough? And if someone is poking and poking and poking and poking or doing something to you consistently, or you're in an interpersonal relationship and someone consistently lies to you, what do? You walk away, but we can't walk away here. So what do we do that shows more strength or is stronger? And the only thing I can think of, and I think there is power in writing letters, but what else can we do as a board? And I'm not sure. Besides really holding the feet to the fire of our electeds, and anybody who's sitting at this table who thinks they're gonna run for office, not doing the same thing. And remembering and thinking about your constituents. And it doesn't matter if you agree with the project as is, and for me, I was in full support of it being demolition in the beginning. But being part of these closed door meetings and seeing what was happening, the lack of transparency is what shifted me, as well as the working group. And I'm not surprised that we're sitting here with these issues right now. And that's why I sit here and I stay quiet for a very long time, because I'm so frustrated and I need to like chill out before I speak. This will, as Ken said, this is what will happen from here. I expect it will get worse, right? Unless there are some parameters put in place, like Ken suggested what Paul's suggesting in the letter. But how do we hold people and our electeds accountable to this? And it's not only the board. I say that because we're here, but I think it's about the tenants organizing and doing what you're doing and continue to doing it. I wish I had I wish that we could come up with a real solution here.
And I certainly second that, like, call for, I don't know, a solution. It does, and I am very much not a tenant lawyer, but I work with plenty of them. It does appear that there are a number of, like, either local laws or tenants' rights that are being fundamentally violated by this process. And I'm curious whether or not legal aid or another entity is challenging the process by which this is happening, because that, to me, seems like the only meaningful point of leverage, and I don't.
There is a loss, I don't know what.
I just wanted to note that I said to our electeds at this meeting we had on the 13th, that if this were happening in any other building, you would be having a press conference out front. People's doors are being knocked on, they're being told they have to move, they're being given different information. You would be literally with signs and a bunch of tenants behind you. Just because you like this project doesn't mean that's how you treat people. And I think that's that discussion, along with Lucy Newman's list of bullets, how people are gonna lose their rights to this pact conversion without having this done properly, got this letter to come out. Just in our conversation this morning, I was stumped too, like, if they took the time to write this and put this publicly, by the way, we should post this on our website, not just in the Dropbox, so everyone can see it, right? They should be standing behind it. And the phrase Jessica used to me this morning, and I'll say it, you don't want to say it, was that Brad and the AG's person were talking loud and there were crickets from everybody else. You could hear crickets. Because they were not forcefully saying, we sent you this for a reason. You can't act in this way. You just can't act in this way, period. And I want to say, that's what we should put in this follow-up letter saying, our electeds wrote this. And you just said that on our, vague understanding, not vague understanding, but like, there's a bunch of laws that are being broken here. This is not how people should be treated. And it doesn't matter if you are for or against the proposed project. This cannot proceed in this way, and everything has to just cease and desist letter. That's
In
what I
fact,
think.
if you do support the project, I mean, creating legal issues for it to proceed is probably not in your interest.
And creating the ill will for tenants going forward.
Probably important for us to try to stay somewhat on track.
Yeah,
on
meaning-
goals.
Cause there is a motion.
Meeting.
in it,
follow
right?
that
Yeah.
motion.
But just, but again, I think it's important just to, we need to make a statement. And that, again, to go back to the earlier point, Maria's point, it may not be enough, we can strategize separately, but at the very least, we've got to start by being on the record on something beyond what we've already been on the record.
They've been asked to cease and desist, and they're not.
But I agree with Maria, it has to be stronger than a regular,
Yeah.
than just this regular.
Minor point, the mail, there are several mail, when I did the walkthrough, the mailboxes in Chelsea Addition, many of them were broken and have been broken for a very long time, according to Renee. Now, they're not getting their mail. And to me, it would appear to make people feel uncomfortable, right? And I have pictures of the mailboxes that are broken, and it is many of them, and it's been for a long time. Also, just so you're aware, my son's stepmother she retired from working for USPS. The mailbox, the post office she told me the post office normally wouldn't hold the mail unless there's a PO box. They would bring it to management. But people have gone to management and told the mail's at the post office, gone to the post office, told the mail is at management. And I just think that that's just one little tidbit, but it can give insight to a bigger picture here. That there's like a runaround, there's confusion, there's a lack of clarity. And I think sometimes, and I'm gonna be completely frank, I think sometimes there's intent. I don't think always there's intent. Sometimes I think there's just misinformation or someone not understanding or being told by their supervisor an update to information. For example, like me not knowing the update to these two letters, and I'm shocked to hear that.
But just when you guys were talking about, they're giving them contracts without it being the details in the contract. Would any of us sign a contract that didn't have details?
Would we sign a lease?
Would we sign a lease?
Amount?
Holy.
Can we come back to policy?
Share the outrage, and that's.
Stay on.
But that has to be reflected in the other.
But the letter can't be 25 different things.
Exactly.
Stay on track.
I would like to again then say, can we please all, I think that we are all unanimous here at this
Yes.
table of the
And simplify.
incredible depth of
Simplify.
frustration that we all have and discuss that was happening.
Sounds like.
Absolutely.
Simplify that.
But I also, and I would really, like, the mail thing is like actually one of the most disturbing things of all this, and I would definitely call that out.
Especially with seniors.
On top, yeah, like, maybe not have it buried underneath, but other than that, like, I think that.
Like 6 or 7 bullets of like things that must be figured out, and immediately deal with it.
I really appreciate you putting that
And I
together.
think it's really important for the rest of the board to see this too. I mean, we're talking amongst ourselves, and I know we want the letter to be scaled down and very pointed, but everybody needs to hear what we're saying here and how outrageous this is.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So in the letter, a second, we should
Good job.
go.
Wait, I was gonna ask,
Just on motion.
well, I was gonna ask, in the letter, could we do, somebody just mentioned it, in the letter, pull up bullet points for what needs to be done immediately versus maybe everything else, but pulling out the things that have already been mentioned in other letters? Or else
Stop
referencing
signing
other-
leases without amounts in them. Like,
Yeah,
that's like
right.
the basic thing, right, the basic thing.
That,
Get-
exactly.
Get the mail delivered, get the intercom, just very because these things are truly, you're right, or they're harassing and also contrary to basic landlord-tenant law.
Okay, so we have a second, Katie, are you asking a question on the motion or are you voting?
I'm seconding.
Okay, we have a second here.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I thought you just asked if there was a second. So, but I guess it seems to me like we're saying a whole bunch of things about one letter. And I think your suggestions were great, Paul, and I certainly appreciate, Maria, that you think it should be super strong and we should do that. But I think trying to have like, many bullet points, or not many, but just some of the most important things. I think we're asking one letter to do too many things. And I think that this letter, Paul, that you suggested, which was just like 3 main points. I think it's important and that we make it strong. I think this letter cannot be more than a page and a half, like it needs.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think it has to be really short. And there are so many egregious issues that need to be raised, but
So
they
to
can't be
that-
raised in this letter.
To that point, maybe
Yeah.
like Joe, your suggestion of a list of 6 or 8 or 10, 12 things, maybe we do that as an amendment to the letter. And in the letter, we say, maintain maintenance, including regular maintenance in the buildings, see attached list. And then that list could be all the items, something like that. So the letter's punchy, and as long as
Yeah.
the letter punchy, but don't lose the fact that these are egregious 1, 2, 3, 4.
100%, but I do think it needs to be short, and I think the main points that you raised were great. Yeah, and then having an attachment or
I
something.
love short and sweet.
Yeah, I think,
And
and
strong.
I think we're saying the sentiment that Paul, you outlined, that Jesse seconded, very strong. Recognizing we will still have continued engagement opportunities for some of these other long-term things that have been on the record already. We can remind folks about, but the bulk of this letter is to talk about the unacceptable actions that are currently taking place as it relates to phase 0 and phase 1.
With a general cease and desist.
So I'm gonna say that those are considered friendly, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
I didn't want to.
No.
No.
Okay, any opposed?
I just want to make sure it's going to the AG's office too, right?
Oh, yes.
My suggestion is address it to the 2 as addressed here,
Uh-huh.
copy all the 6 elected officials that signed that letter. And that the suggestion where you could copy somebody at HUD as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, this will continue to be bumpy, it's just gonna be that way.
Yeah, it's very bumpy to get.
Right.
We're gonna get
Well, Separately, do we want to have some conversation about the beginning of a second letter about the rules of engagement?
Yes, and as he asked for, like a
I think that's gonna happen on December, we're gonna start that conversation on December. And but if Triple HS wants to take that up in its
Yeah,
next
yeah,
committee
who's gonna
meeting,
take it and.
then I think that
I
would
think we
be,
started at the
but I think
next meeting,
December
and then
1st.
December 1st happens before the Triple HS, so start the conversation there and then bring it to the public to engage with.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, can I get a motion?
And when sorry, just wanted to note that the board was sent a joint letter from HKC and CRDC as a follow-up to the discussion about Intro 421, the roadway dining, asking for a public meeting to happen.
Yep, I shared that with the chairs and
And
we're
the
acknowledged receipt as well.
bill has been put over. So is this one time? Thank you. Thank you.
You shared that loud.
Do that. Or be there.
Yeah, I do want to add that we put it on the agenda, the BLT meeting. Talk about it,
It's called for a
If
public.
we're doing it, and if we're doing it, I would love to engage it across like the transportation, DOT meeting, and make it a joint meeting.
In December.
Roberta? I have a motion.
Let's second.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I thought you said it, but.
Can
How long is it?
we-
Till. Oh, I suppose I can find out.
I'm also happy to send you